Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's good? So I want to chop it up with y'all real quick about some names that were thrown around over the last couple of days as far as potential matchups on Twitter. We know it goes down on Twitter as far as boxing goes, with fighters being able to have a direct connection with their fans, also with each other, and it's available for the public to see, right? So I believe Keyshawn Davis responded to a tweet, or maybe, as a matter of fact, this is what it was. Keyshawn Davis said that he wanted to have himself versus Frank Martin on the undercard of a possible Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford fight. We all know that Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford are reportedly still in negotiations, so that fight could still be in the works. Y'all know I'm not getting my hopes up over that fight, so I'm just sitting back and, if that shit drop out of the sky like Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao fight announcement did, cool. If not, on to the next one. You dig what I'm saying? But Keyshawn Davis apparently, of course, he's cool with Terrence Crawford, the Shakur Stevenson camp. Maybe he's heard something through the grapevine. Maybe he's just heard the public news that everybody else heard, as far as Steven Espinoza saying that fight is actively in negotiations. Bo Mackey came out and said that. So, I mean, that's dope. But he said, hey, man, look, if that fight is next, me versus Frank Martin, Keyshawn Davis versus Frank Martin, we need to be on the co-main on that undercard. And let me be the first to say, I think that would be absolutely incredible. That would be, just those two fights alone, I'll pay $100 for that pay-per-view. Just off those two fights. I don't give a damn who they put on there after that. You dig what I'm saying? For real, I don't care who they put on there. You know what I'm saying? If you give me those two fights, I'll pay $100 for that pay-per-view gladly. You feel me? So somebody tagged Errol Spence, and Errol Spence was like, I don't know what that guy's talking about. Errol Spence sticking to the code. He like, ain't shit been solidified, so I don't know what that guy's talking about, but I actually like the Shakur Stevenson versus Frank Martin fight better. And then he took a little jab at Keyshawn Davis. He said Top Rank still feeding that pup through a bottle. He said something to that effect, basically saying he's still a prospect and they still giving him little freebie ass fights, which is 100% facts. Keyshawn Davis ain't fought nobody. You know what I'm saying? And look, I like the fact that he's talking like he's, that he wants to fight these guys. But in my personal opinion, I think Keyshawn Davis, number one, let me say, I think Keyshawn Davis is a great talent. I think he's a great prospect. Is he on the elite level? We still got to see. The eye test, he passes it with flying colors. Very technical fighter, very gifted. He seems to have a level of dog in him that could take him to that next level. But as far as the level of competition, of course, he's still low in the number of fights. He Olympian, of course, got a great pedigree, great amateur background, but he just ain't had no meaningful fights yet. And his nickname is the businessman. And every time they ask him, like after his fights, like he'll go on social media and say he want these fights. But then after his fight, when they put the mic in his face in the ring, he be saying the businessman shit, like, oh, I'ma just do, Top Rank. I'ma let my team move me how they move me, which is what you supposed to do. That's cool. It's just like, it seemed like he be playing both sides, because on one hand, he'll say, I want to fight Frank Martin. And then on the other hand, he be like, I'm only 6-0. You know what I'm saying? I'm only 6-0. Why y'all trying to throw me in with the dogs? I'm only 6-0. But yeah, I'll fight him. It kind of remind me of like that Rick James story on Dave Chappelle, where Charlie Murphy was telling that Rick James story. And Rick James, they had Rick James on there, and they asked him about him grinding his feet on Eddie Murphy's couch. And he was like, why would I just grind my feet on somebody's couch like it's just something to do? Yeah, I remember grinding my feet on Eddie Murphy's couch. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of shit that's the energy that I be getting from Keyshawn Davis. It's like he say one thing and then say something else, but that's neither here nor there. I think that's a great fight. I would love that. But like Errol Spence said, they still feed him through the bottle. They still giving him these little freebie fights. And that's what you're supposed to do with a prospect. You build him up slowly, and then you put him in there when you think he's ready. Now, Frank Martin, on the other hand, just coming off of a very impressive victory versus Michelle Rivera, who ended up popping dirty for PEDs after that, but we ain't gonna really talk about that. That makes the victory even more impressive because the man was on stuff. And he still got totally outclassed, got dropped. Frank Martin dominated Michelle Rivera, a bigger fighter, a very skilled and very experienced fighter in Michelle Rivera. Very impressive. I've yet to see Keyshawn Davis get in the ring with anybody remotely as close to a Michelle Rivera ever. You know what I'm saying? I haven't seen him on that level. I know what Frank Martin bringing to the table. Frank Martin had, every time he step in the ring, he elevates his competition. You dig what I'm saying? Now, Frank Martin, he started late in boxing. You know what I'm saying? But he made some noise in the amateurs. You can go back and watch some of the film. Had a fight with he beat Virgil Ortiz in the amateurs, dropped him. You know what I'm saying? Virgil Ortiz currently a welterweight. Big shit. So Frank Martin is obviously a great talent, and he got the best coach in boxing, and you see what he got around him. He's only going to learn, and Frank Martin is dedicated, focused. He one of those guys that he just want to be the best, bro. He dedicated to the sport. Frank Martin truly wants to be the best. That's what he strived to be, and he dedicate and put his work ethic to the forefront, and he focused on his craft, and you see that shit in the ring. So I agree with Errol Spence. If Keyshawn Davis, if they was really gonna put him in the ring with a Frank Martin, I think Frank Martin just too much for him right now. But I would still love to see the fight. However, a more evenly matched fight is Frank Martin versus Shakur Stevenson. So, Shakur Stevenson does have a fight coming up real soon in his hometown, Newark, New Jersey, which Keyshawn Davis will be on the undercard of that fight, right? He's fighting Yoshimo. I think that's how you say his name. Yoshimo, undefeated Japanese fighter. Really ain't had no big name fights himself. He's been fighting all of the guys overseas in Japan. You know what I'm saying? But he's undefeated. I believe he's like 16-0 with 12 knockouts. Big puncher. So this should be interesting. I expect, from what I've seen from Shakur Stevenson, what I know about Shakur Stevenson, who was one of my favorite fighters, I expect him to go in and dismantle this guy, take away his best weapons, and dominate him. But it could turn out to be a sleeper or dangerous fight. It's a hometown fight, so you know how guys do it, how guys get when they in their hometown. Sometimes they take unnecessary chances to try to put on a show for the fans, and you can fuck around and get caught. I think Shakur Stevenson is a lot smarter than that. I think he's going to want to put on a show, but I don't think he's going to do nothing too risky to the point where he leave himself open and get caught with something stupid. Frank Martin, he doesn't have a fight coming up yet. I would love to see Frank Martin take another fight. However, if Shakur Stevenson, goes out there and gets the victory like I expect him to do, and in the ring after the fight, if he calls out Frank Martin, I would love to see them put that shit into the works. We seen Errol Spence deliver for Frank Martin already. He had the Chris Colbert fight delivered to him, but Chris Colbert, his team, they didn't want the fight. You know what I'm saying? They said Chris Colbert, think he had troubles making weight. He had some other, he had other issues. I think he was out of shape or something. So Errol Spence delivered that. He facilitated that fight, and it was there for Frank Martin, but Chris Colbert didn't keep up his end of the deal. So Errol Spence, he came back with an even better fight with Michelle Rivera. So I have no reason to think that Errol Spence can't facilitate this fight. Now, will Bob Arum put Shakur Stevenson in the ring with a Frank Martin? At this point, that's a big risky move if Bob Arum were to do that. I believe in Shakur Stevenson. I believe in Frank Martin too. I know that Bob Arum believes in Shakur Stevenson, but is he willing to risk putting him in there with Frank Martin, who's not his fighter, where it's like, okay, if you lose, you ain't really, it's not against Oscar Valdez, who is a top-ranked fighter who you could build up because he's still your guy. But you put him in there with Frank Martin, that's a big risk. Will Bob Arum do that? I don't know. But I think the way Errol Spence been moving, put his promoter hat on, I think he can deliver that fight for Frank Martin. You dig what I'm saying? That would be a great fight on the undercard of Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford if that fight were to take place. Shakur Stevenson is a protege of Terrence Crawford. Frank Martin, a protege of Errol Spence. I think it would be incredible. Who I would be leaning towards in that fight off rip, I think that is a 50-50 evenly matched fight. It'll be very interesting to see how Shakur Stevenson deals with the athleticism and the ability to crash the pocket that Frank Martin has, the angles that he have. He's like Lomachenko, but stronger and bigger and even more athletic and hit harder and might even be more technical. You dig what I'm saying? I know that's saying a lot, but watch Frank Martin's film. Incredible. Very technical. He reminds you of a Lomachenko with the angles, but he's bigger and he's stronger. And he might have faster hands too. Frank, that's going to be interesting. How does Shakur Stevenson deal with that? Because Shakur Stevenson is a great master of distance control, probably the best in the sport of boxing. Maybe the most balanced fighter in the sport when it comes to transitioning from offense to defense and from defense to offense. How does Frank Martin deal with the distance of Shakur Stevenson? How does he crash the pocket on a guy who controls the distance so well? You dig what I'm saying? Very interesting matchup, and it's a 50-50 fight. I would have to lean towards a Shakur Stevenson if I had to, maybe a little bit, but I'll be honest, is reasons why I could pick Frank Martin too. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say this. That's so 50-50. I can't even tell you who I'm leaning towards because I was so impressed with Frank Martin's victory over Michelle Rivera. I think he can present some shit to Shakur Stevenson that could really give him some trouble, some real live trouble. You know what I'm saying? I think Shakur Stevenson presents some things to Frank Martin that can really stagnate him, maybe slow his work rate down, and put his hands in his pocket with the distance and counter game. You know what I'm saying? That'll be a great fight. I really haven't seen Shakur Stevenson box off of the I really haven't seen Shakur Stevenson have to be very mobile. I think Frank Martin could make him have to be mobile. Frank Martin can box off the back foot. He can use the whole ring, and he can walk you down. Shakur Stevenson is more of a mid-range, middle of the ring type fighter. You dig what I'm saying? He controls distance so well, he don't got to move his feet all around the ring. Everything is subtle with Shakur Stevenson. That's the beauty of it. He don't waste no punches. He don't waste no movement. And that's why he's so difficult to beat, because he can transition from defense to offense so well. If you miss one shot, he gonna make you pay. He gonna make a subtle little half step back and then get on your ass. You feel me? So great matchup. Man, that's a dream fight. That's a dream. That's a fight that I really want to see. And I thought about it, but I really didn't sink my teeth into it and really didn't just start analyzing that shit until the last couple of days, right? So I say that to say this. Shakur Stevenson versus Frank Martin would be a perfect way for Shakur to make his presence known at 135. There could be a matchup between Devin Haney, the winner of Devin Haney and Lomachenko, versus Shakur Stevenson, which would also be phenomenal. I think that would be the priority, obviously, right? Also, it'll be a great opportunity for Frank Martin to, elevate himself in the game. But I think it's a win-win for both guys. I think if Shakur Stevenson beat Frank Martin, that's a big statement at 135 because he's just moving up to that division. You feel what I'm saying? This will be this fight that he about to have coming up, his first fight in the division. For Frank Martin, you beat Shakur Stevenson, you instantly in the pound for pound. You know what I'm saying? So y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. What do y'all think about that matchup? How y'all see that matchup potentially happening? Do you think it's likely that it could take place? How realistic is it? Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender Regime Boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.